All right, let's start. Hello, everyone. Today is about to explore the evolution of Android design from its roots in material design to the latest iteration known as Material 3, with a particular focus on the exciting concept of Material U. We also will discuss how to migrate an Android app to embrace the new Material 3 guidelines. Let's dive in, but before that, a little disclaimer. I'm Renaud Mathieu, I'm a freelancer. I don't work for Google, I don't work for Figma either. Most of the opinions you will hear during this session are mine entirely. A brief on the agenda. We will speak about what's a design system. We will review a brief history of the material design, because I think it's very important to review it to know where we are heading and what Material 3 is about. A short break before going to Material U about Relay, and maybe giving some opinion, and hope that you guys will have also a strong opinion on Relay. And then final step about Material U. So what's a design system? It's a set of standards that manage design at scale by reducing the redundancy while we are creating shared language and visual consistency across different channels. Basically, a design system includes a lot of components. The design principle that defines the goals and the objective of the design system. It serves as the compass for maintaining the consistency and the quality of your product. We have the branding guidelines, the guidelines that ensure that all the products and services within the company maintain a cohesive brand identity. We have the visual style guide, specification for typography, the colors, the icons, spacings, layouts, and many other elements. Also inside a design system, we have the component library. Basically, the component library is the collection of pre-designed and reusable UI elements, such as buttons, forms, the menu, the cards, and more. We have the interaction pattern, basically the guidelines that define how our user will interact with or within the system. Most of the time it includes the transition, the gesture. And the last one, the one that, to my opinion, is very important, is the documentation, because it serves as a reference for creating and implementing designs with the system, and also make sure that everyone within the company is involved and has a shared understanding of the design principles and the guidelines. Why a design system? Why is it important? Design systems, they save organization time and money by codifying the design decision that can be then used across all the products. They also improve the customer experience by ensuring the consistency, but also sometimes the accessibility at every touch point. Why a design system? Why not a design system? This is where it comes that it has some potential orders that may prevent a design team from using a design system. And this is based maybe on some stuff that everybody here is facing on a daily basis. But creating and maintaining a design system is very time intensive, and it requires most of the time a dedicated team. The design systems, they are constantly evolving as the team gathers feedbacks and from people who are using them and from the users. It takes a lot of time to each other to use and be familiar with the design system, and it needs most of the time a lot of instructions on the documentation. Otherwise, there is a risk that it may be consistent, and then people will be very confused. Have you ever wondered why we give names to design system? Well, first because it's cool to have a name, but it also helps us, the company, to give a character to the design system. For example, Fluent, we can just call this Microsoft design system, right? One of the reasons I've heard many times from designer is that most of the time, let's call the designer in charge of the design system Tom. is the design leader, and people will tend to call, this is Tom's project. And by giving a name, you put everyone on board, and you make sure this is not Tom's project anymore. It's the whole team, not only the engineers, but also the designers, the product team, that's going to be familiar with the design system, get feedbacks on making sure that it evolves. So we have Fluent for Microsoft. They released the second version quite not so far ago. We have the one from IBM. We have also the one from Shopify. So as you can see, many big companies are creating their own design system, but also smaller, like Duolingo. It doesn't have to have many things within the design system, but make sure that you have proper documentation on all the components that I've shown before. We have Decathlon as well. That's why I'm speaking about the talk that you can see right after this one that Gerard is going to give. It's about design system inside Decathlon. So if you want to go deeper, go to Gerard's talk. Okay, so that's the history, that's the introduction about a design system. Now we can have a brief history of material design. We will discuss the impact of material design within the Android ecosystem, the consistent and the visually appealing user interface we have in our Android applications, and how material brought an enhanced user experience through the components and the interaction there is. A brief history. So before the prequel, we had nothing, and then we went to Holo. So I took some screenshots. So that was the Android version 1.0. Then we have a gingerbread. Then we had ice cream sandwich, and that was the road from nothing to Holo. So at that point, the idea was, okay, we don't have any design, and let's try to at least have some consistency across all the apps within your phone, within the user device. If you want to have more stuff about this, again, there is the 10 years of Android development from Julien tomorrow. Is going to be more into what was before material design. So not the topic for today. But let's go to Material One. I recently found that it's quite funny because they provided M1 material.io, so you can access to all the guidelines from Material 1. There is also Material 2, so M2 and M3. But let's have a look at Material 1. Google introduced the first version of Google Material in 2014, and the primary purpose was to create this large language that combine principles of the good design and the technical innovation. Also, as I said before, it allowed us to try to unify the design across the system. And if I compare to iOS, you can see that most of the apps at that time inside an iOS device were more consistent and what I like to call some kind of Christmas tree design for Android app at that time, where you have buttons everywhere on many colors. It didn't give a good consistency when you actually using your phone. There is one key thing that was introduced in Material 1, to my opinion. That was the elevation. Material 1 is many things. One of the key concepts is this introduction of elevation and the introduction of the Z-axis. Basically, material design at that time was a three-dimensional environment containing some lights, some ambient light, the material, and also the ability to cast shadows. So as you can see on this sample from the Material 1 design, they also provide us some components, and with the components, they gave us the elevation. Like we had this dialogue has to be 24 dp, and some switch have to be very flat. They also give us something that we still have, and I don't know if iOS has this, but the ripple effect still around. I think it's very convenient because you actually know with a nice animation, and it's almost free to integrate for us as Android engineers. And it also just basically, you see where you press. And with material, they introduced this material, which we call later a surface. And you can see where actually you are doing something. They introduced also the color palette, so it might be very funny now, but back in that day, that was crazy. We had the primary and the secondary colors, and as you can see on this design, we liked having this nice coordinator layout, this floating action button, and then there was 2 colors, and this is a good representation for me, the design on the right, that what was Material 1 back in that days. Awesome as well, they provide us a huge list library collection of components. They introduced the floating action button, the cards. As you can see, the dialogue with the button and very flat with the button with the emphasis on where you should press, where you shouldn't press, and on the right, the bottom sheets that are going from below to the top. So basically, Material 1 brought to the table a lot of awesome components. Material 2, again, m2.material.io, and you will find a lot of things about their point of view on the implementation of Material. It was introduced in 2018. It was a revamp. They began redesigning, Google began to redesign most of their app into a customized and adapt version of the Material design. And what we call that Google Material Design or Google Material Theme. We then later called it Material 2. Strong emphasis with space, round corners, colorful icons, bottom navigation, and also a new font, the Google Sun, that we were not able to use, but it was part of the Google Material Theme. So they introduce the colors, the typography, the shape that we're going to review, but also they rename what was called the material to more the surface that we can see here, and also the shapes. We were able to manipulate and transform a shape quite easily, and they introduced new shapes. Summarizing material design to the thing that I'm showing here would be very simplistic, especially because the job of Google did toward the material studies a lot of concrete scenarios that they are going to show us, like launching screen, the good practice of onboarding, the good practice of offline states. Another thing is Material 2 was not only for Android, it was also for Flutter, for the web, and also for iOS. For the color, this is the palette we have. So in its primary, secondary, then we have also the variant of the primary, the variant of the secondary. We have also some error, and they brought a little bit later the dark theme. Since they wanted to have also the implementation inside the web, they created this typography scale, very handy. I've never used H1, for example, in an Android application, but still, I wonder if some web engineers used it. But it was very close to web, H1 through H6, and then subtitles, subtitles 1, subtitles 2, body 1, body 2, overline, etc. Again, they provide new components, the new way also to use the components. And this is the thing I liked is they said that, for example, you want to display an alert dialog, ask your user the good question, like, do you want to delete from this library, etc., which was very convenient back in that days because sometimes designers, they were putting some question, but it was not following some guidelines, so it was very helpful to have Google saying, like, you should maybe ask the question this way, or this is, for example, this usage of acknowledgement, use a snack bar, so it provides us a lot of good guidelines. A little break, so we are going to speak about Material 3, but I just wanted to have a little break about Relay. In this room, is anybody has used the Relay before? Can you raise your hand? Nobody? That's perfect. Then it's good that you came. It was introduced in Dev Summit 2022. It's still in alpha. So I think they did a good job, but as you might see, I will be a little bit opinionated on this. So if you want to use a relay, you have to have a Figma account. You have to have your Figma personal access token. You have to use Jetpack Compose version 1.2 or later. You have to use Android Studio Chipmunk or later. You have to update your project by using the plugin from Relay. You have to, I don't know why, when you install, put your password. And then you have to Gradle sync. And so basically what you have to do is many things. So you have to put the plugin inside Figma, put the plugin inside Android Studio, update your project. But let's have some fun, since nobody has been using Relay here, to work with Relay. So you should see here my skills of designer. So this is Figma project. And one thing that is very interesting is the Google team and the material team, they are giving more and more tools, especially for designer. And they used to go through Sketch a lot, and it seems that they completely got rid of Sketch, and they are mostly using Figma. So I don't know if you switch on Figma inside your company, but the tools from the material team are in Figma. And for example, here they are giving us the full material design kit that kind of sum up what we're going to look after the relay break. But it helps us because we have a lot of components here, and that's what we can use basically, and specs as well. So what I did here is I just copy-paste the component from the material design kit here. So what I'm going to do, sorry, it's kind of complex. Need to see. We have to detach the instance. Why? Because, sorry, I'm on a free account, so you cannot use components in Figma if you're on a free account. So I'm detaching this component from the one from the design kit, and I'm just going to create a component, create component here. So as you can see, it has now the good color. Well, basically, you have this component, which is very handy because from the design, the material design team, they provide also some variants, so things that you can see here, and some property. And then you can also apply dark mode, for example. So everything is very handy here. So I have this. This component is using from Figma auto layout. So it's very important here because what you see is a box with the width and the height. But when we're going to use relay, then since it's auto layout, it's going to be like a responsive component. And it's going normally to work for tablet, for example. So we have this here. And then, by the way, I already did the setup that I was showing, because otherwise it will require more than 40 minutes. And then what I'm going to do is plug in relay for Figma here. We are going to create a UI package here. And what is very handy here is that you can put some parameters. So let's select the header here. And once you select, then you use the parameter. You're going to set text content. So let's say this. It's all right. So this is the job of the designer here. And then I'm going to share it to the developer. So you just have this weird versioning. You save it. I'm pasting this, and then let's go to Android Studio. I have this project here, so we don't need this. It's a basic greeting. And then I'm going to add, again, I already set up everything, import the UI package, and put it here. So now we have to wait a little bit because it's going to fetch everything. It's going to fetch from the Figma file, the component, it's going to generate many things. So we retrieved this card, and then we create. All right. As you can see here, there is a module, which is the UI package. So basically, everything in Relay has been loaded, but I need to generate the components. That's why I'm going to build the project. And you will see here on the stat card, some stuff are coming. Here we go. So now I should be able to have the auto-completion with the stat card. And I have also the header. Let me put a modifier as well. Just for the padding, I'm going to add a padding here. Let's put this, for example, on the header, hello, Dogecoin. And now, here we have the project here. So, as you can see, it works. Let's not speak about the setup, because I assume they're going to improve this, even if I'm sure they will have to still use the plugin inside Figma and the plugin inside Android Studio. But now what is really interesting to me is, let's have a look at the source code of this component. So yeah, maybe I'm biased because this component is not just a text and an icon, but our application is not just about a text and an icon. It's mostly more and more bigger components. So the question I asked myself was, okay, let's have a look at the source code. So everything here is automatically imported. And maybe I can do this so you can see everything. This is how the source code looks like. So as you can see, first the question is, where does it go? So it goes on the debug build, and it goes here. So at the beginning, I'm very happy. I have the modifier on top, which I like. Having always a modifier inside the composable is, for me, mandatory. And I prefer having this in the first parameter. So nice. I also have the parameter I provided with a default value. Okay. But then it's weird. I'm not speaking about the fact that everything is inside one big function, but the thing that I'm not really happy is this row weight here. I don't know this one from Jetpack Compose, right? But let's have a look at this, and okay, relay container scope, container, box align, weight, and if we go here, okay, so basically, by integrating relay, I also integrating a lot of function from relay inside my code. So what does it mean? It means that I'm very tight to relay. And well, we are experienced engineers. I think we like to have some flexibility. So maybe if I go to sum up to give my opinion on this, it seems like the tool is nice if you want to go to no code, maybe one day. Could be nice also if we improve the multi-platform thing. But at the moment, I'm not very convinced, and I have a bias. Sorry about this. It's this bias. I don't know if you remember Material Gallery. So basically, they did one thing that was about sharing design back in the days, and yeah, they sunset it 2 years after. Relay has been around in beta or alpha for almost a year. So is it really a project that is being sustainable? I don't know. And also last week, maybe it was sharing this. I don't know if you have been hearing about this, but there is inside Figma the new dev mode here, which is very handy. I'm actually using it a lot with my designer because you can have the modifiers here, and when you select something, let's take this, for example, this text. You see you have many things right here. So it's not like we used to have Zeppelin plugged with Sketch. It's within Figma, but for me it's good because it gives me a good, quick look at what the designer wanted for example, in reason of colors, of paddings, etc. And then I can integrate this inside because it's part of my job. So I don't know what you guys think about Relay, but that was my opinion. So I think they did a good job, but yeah, we'll see in a year, right? Anyway, that was the break. Let me check. All right. So Material 3. At Google I/O in 2021, the Google announced a new concept on Android 12 that we know known as the Material U. That was also Material Design 3. And they emphasize on increasing the animation, again, larger buttons, and the ability for the custom UI theme to be generated from the user's wallpapers. And then Material U was gradually rolled out to various Google apps on older versions in the following months, and then act as a major focus when you were buying a Pixel 6 or Pixel 6 Pro smartphone. How many people here is using Material 3 in production? Just to have a one, yeah? Okay. So that's also what I was saying, it's that they roll out slowly, and it seems that the adoption is quite slow for different reasons, but we will speak about this later. Again, that was great. They provided the material design component for the view, also strong focus on Jetpack Compose, so you were able to have both, because if we look back, they introduced Jetpack Compose and Material 3 almost in the same time. So it's a lot of work for them, because as engineers, and maybe that explains the reason why the adoption is slow, we had to move to Jetpack Compose, then we have to move to maybe Material 3 or new design. So that made a lot of, maybe that explains why the adoption was slow. Since we are speaking about Material 3, and not only speaking about Android, Flutter is great. I think on this part they are very happy, but let's have a look at web. So I took this screenshot from this GitHub issue. So basically on the bottom it's saying like, please do not answer, the components are being actively worked on, sorry, and close the issue, but please give us some roadmap, because many web engineers, they want, because, for example, they have material design, they have the design system built on top of material design. On web developer, they would like to use the new design system, which is built on top of material design, so maybe they would like to also use material design for web to build the design system for the web part of the company. And I took this screenshot. It says, this one, sorry, 5 days ago. I took it 6 days ago. So basically, right now, version 1.1 in 2003, they consider many components as alpha, beta check, but not stable. So after more than a year and a half, it's still not stable for buttons. And they are releasing the pre-12 version. So I don't know what's going on this. Maybe it also makes sure that the adoption is slow, because it's slow on the web. So I don't know what's happening here. Maybe it's very complex, but for web it's not ready yet. Anyway, let's more look into design, and you can see that with Material 1 it was just the typography, etc., and now it's more and more complex. So the typography, it's not H1, H2, H3 until H6 anymore. It's a new pattern, which makes also the transition a little bit complex here. We have the display, so this is reserved for the short and important text. They work mostly on large screens. We have the headlines for short as well, but on smaller screen. They have the titles, which are the headlines of styles, and that should be used for medium emphasis. and relatively short, the body, and then the labels, for example, in chips. We also have shapes, and the shapes is not about small, medium, large. It's more like a type scale. We have the typography scale. We now have the shape scales, and we can express different shapes and apply them when we want. You can see there is 6 of them here, 7 of them, and well, we can express this scale shape here. Icons. So we like to go to material icons, and now they are introducing the weight and also the grade and the size. So it's more and more. It's not just about field outlined or normal icons. You can have more parameters getting your icons. So it has been improved. The tough topic is about colors. So when I'm trying to explain the colors, you have to understand that there is over 20 attributes related to colors in Material 3. But there are few key colors that actually combine, and they are combined with the same 4-5 colors rules that created from derivate colors. The foundation of the color scheme is just the set of these 5 key colors. So when you migrating to Material 3, think about this. This is the foundation. You have 3 accent colors: the primary, the secondary, the tertiary, and you have the neutral one on the variant. And specific tones from each tonal palette are assigned to a color role across the UI, and the key colors, they are the foundation for creating also the dynamic color scheme. With the key colors established, then Material's algorithm will specify the full spectrum of the colors that were needed for expressing the interaction state, the errors, and the accessible content. So basically, the primary colors is used to derive role for key components across the UI, such as floating action button, the button, active states, etc. The secondary key color is used for less prominent components, such as the ships, and they're expanding the opportunity for more color expression. And the tertiary, you can use this one for your product, or is left up to the team. The neutral colors is used to derive the surface, and in addition to the accent and neutral color, there is also the color for error that we had in Material 2. So at the end, one key color becomes 13 tones. That's why there is many colors, but keep in mind there is 5 foundation colors. So that's why when you look at the palette, then you have this. That's mostly generated from your 5 colors. They provided the material theme builder that you can play with. So think about this when you are generating this, and also be sure that there is the custom one and the dynamic one. For the dynamic one, it's basically using the algorithm from Google to generate the dynamic version, the dynamic palette. The dynamic colors, they are available on Android 12 and above. So if the dynamic colors are available, you can set up the dynamic color scheme. So if not, then you should fall back to using your custom light or dark color scheme. The color scheme provides a builder function here that creates the dynamic light and dark color scheme. That's why we are passing actually a local context, the context inside the dynamic dark color scheme. By the way, on the Material GitHub repo, there is all the algorithm, and there is the Java version. And if you want, you can have a look at this. It's the way they are generating the colors. If you want to have some side project, it can be useful. Okay, so you remember I was speaking about Material 1, about the elevation and the size. So that's one of the major differences inside Material 1, Material 2, and Material 3. It's not about shadow elevation anymore. It's about tonal elevation. So depending, you don't really have the shadow here, but you will have a different color. So in this example, you can see that one surface at 1 dp elevation and another at 8, and it's not the same color anymore. It's also automatically generated. This is from, I don't really read, it's from March. So basically, in March, they introduced the tone-based surface in Material 3. And it's part also on the what's new from the overview that you can find on Material 3. So that's a big change here. Let's unlock a new feature about layout. So as you can see, we have no more tablets, and they call that form factors. So what they are providing, it's right inside the Figma file that I showed you. It's the breakpoints that they are suggesting you to use. And it's not so hard to use these breakpoints inside the Material 3 project. Basically, you have to add the Material 3 window size class, the one I put below, and then you will have access to an enum of compact and also different size. And then, for example, window size class, if the width size is compact, then show the layout for small devices, and then for layout for large. So you don't really have to deal with the breakpoints. You can just use the window size here, class, library, and rely on this to display the good layouts. All right, migration to Material 3. So there's two ways of doing it. The big one, like I'm changing everything in the project in one branch and try to merge this, or the phase migration. In general, it's not good to use both M2 and M3 on a single app, but in long term. But if you are migrating, then you have to add the M3 dependency alongside M2 dependency. Then you have to add the M3 version of your app theme alongside the M2 version. Then you have to migrate module screens or composable to M3, depending on the size, the complexity of your app. And once it's fully migrated, then you remove the M2 version of your app. So I had the opportunity to do that for an app for a conference in Paris, where we migrated from, I migrated from M2 to M3. What I was looking for is the import on the project. So I had the M2, I had the M3, and then getting rid of the M2 was helpful thanks to the import. So I was looking for making sure that I'm targeting Material 3 package and not Material package. Be careful for the icons, because even if the icons move to Material 3, it's still in the package of material.icons. There was a nice talk this morning about this from Fatih and Odin about getting your app ready for M3. All right, the conclusion. Material is constantly evolving, and it gets more and more complex, as you have seen. The design, they follow trends, and Google, you like it or not, is a major actor on defining those trends. From the shadow to tonal elevation, from the static colors to dynamic colors, Material, they are always bringing new trends to the table. And I think that for this, Google is making a great job for us front-end engineers. Also, I think it's kind of our duty, let's not forget this, to push for new design thing to provide shiny, usable, accessible user experience. To the question, should I migrate to Material 3? Well, what are we going to do anyway? We are going to wait for Material 4? It depends on where you want to put your cursor into design. Jetpack Compose Material 3 considered as stable. Material 3 is not over yet. I'm not talking about the web here, but more in Jetpack Compose. Some components are still in the pipeline. There is the list header, but you can think about segmenting buttons, carousel, side sheets that are not yet ready. There's two options to be kept informed. Well, go through cs.android.com to look at the source code. And there is this page I like to look after based on the source code, but it sums up everything. And one funny thing here is that they recently added this section that you can see on Jetpack Compose table is version 1.1.1. We have 1.2.0 Alpha 3, and Compose multi-platform use Matter 1.0.1 under the hood. So the road to multi-platform is, for me, paved with good intention, and I believe strongly that there is a bright future for us as Android engineer. Again, I think this is not ready yet, but look at the future. So to finish, to conclude, sorry, I like this quote, like every detail makes the design of the app. I want to thank you for listening to this talk, and also you will find more articles, more focus on technical aspects inside this website. Thank you.